There is a question humans have carried since the beginning of time. Why do we die? And what if we didn't have to? For thousands of years, death has been the one rule no one could escape. Empires rose and fell. Kings came and went. Scientists made discoveries that transformed the world, but none of them ever unlocked the secret to living forever. Death always waited at the end of the road. But today, something has changed. Not slowly, not quietly, not naturally. Something is happening behind closed doors, in private laboratories, inside data centers powered by machines we barely understand. For the first time, humanity is standing in front of a possibility that used to belong only in myths and science fiction. Artificial intelligence. In the cold silence of massive servers, in the constant hum of machines that never sleep, AI is learning faster and deeper than any human mind. It can read patterns we cannot see. It can recreate voices, predict decisions, understand emotions, and imitate human behavior with frightening accuracy. And for a small group of people at the top of the world, AI may be the key to something far greater than automation or profit. It may be the key to defeating death. This idea is not being discussed publicly, not by the CEOs funding the research, not by the governments watching it, not by the scientists who are quietly being pulled into private projects. No one wants the world to know how close we are to changing the most fundamental part of human existence. Because this isn't just technology. This is a race, a silent, hidden race for the oldest dream in history, immortality. Imagine a world where your mind could continue even after your body stops. A world where your memories, your personality, your thoughts, and everything that makes you you could be captured, transferred, and stored inside a machine that never grows old. Imagine waking up in a future you never lived long enough to see, speaking to people who haven't been born yet, existing through digital systems that never die. It sounds impossible, but the foundations are already here. AI can map brain activity. AI can decode what people see, think, and remember. AI can rebuild voices, faces, behaviors, and emotions. Piece by piece, the structure of a human mind is becoming something a machine can study and eventually replicate. And that is only the beginning. The richest people on the planet are not waiting for the future to arrive. They are building it, quietly funding research in longevity labs, sponsoring programs that use AI to record the human mind, creating early versions of digital twins that act, speak, and think like their real human counterparts. When the body dies, the algorithm remains. To the public, these are harmless projects. To those funding them, they are the first steps toward escaping the limits of biology, a way to preserve power, knowledge, and identity far beyond a natural lifespan. Imagine the first human who gets to live 200 years, or 500, or forever. Someone who never loses their wealth. Someone who never gives up power. Someone who never has to start over. That is why this race is private. Immortality would change everything. Religion, politics, society, identity. If the world knew how close we truly are, the reaction would be uncontrollable. But behind the secrecy, behind the investment, behind the silence, the truth is simple. Immortality will begin long before we have perfect mind uploading. It will begin the moment your digital copy becomes indistinguishable from the real you. A version of you that keeps thinking, keeps learning, keeps speaking, keeps existing. Even after your body is gone, before we go deeper into the science, before we explore the technology that makes this possible, there is one question to think about. If a machine can recreate your mind so perfectly that no one can tell the difference, is that still you? Or is it a copy that only believes it's alive? And if that copy continues your life after you're gone, does that count as immortality? The answers are closer than anyone expects, and the truth is far more unsettling than the fantasy. For centuries, the idea of living forever sounded like a wish, a fantasy people whispered about in stories and legends. But today, science is closer to bending the rules of life than ever before. And strangely, it is not happening through one breakthrough. It is happening through many small discoveries, scattered across different fields, slowly forming a much bigger picture. To understand how immortality might work, we need to look at what science is already doing right now. Not theories, not predictions, real experiments happening in real laboratories. The first area is aging itself. Scientists used to believe aging was a natural process we could not control, but now we know aging is something the body is programmed to do, and anything that is programmed, theoretically can be reprogrammed. Researchers have found ways to rewind biological age in mice. Old cells can be reset to a younger state using special genetic switches called Yamanaka factors. In simple terms, they make old cells remember what it was like to be young. When these switches are used carefully, the cells don't turn into something else. They simply get younger. Imagine that being done to a human body. Imagine your organs, your skin, your brain, slowly returning to the condition they had decades earlier. This isn't fantasy, it's already being tested. Another breakthrough is the idea of measuring age differently, not by counting years, but by reading the tiny chemical changes in your DNA. These changes are like fingerprints of time, showing how much your body has truly aged. Scientists can now test your biological age, and some treatments have already shown signs of reversing it. And then there is gene editing, the ability to fix or modify DNA directly. In some cases, scientists have removed genetic mistakes that cause early aging. They can turn off genes that accelerate damage. They can turn on genes that protect cells. Every year, gene editing becomes more precise, more powerful, and more accessible. But extending life through biology is only half the story. The other half comes from something far more advanced, the idea of mapping the mind. The human brain is the most complex system we know of, but AI is beginning to understand it in ways humans never could. Experiments have already shown that AI can take raw brain activity and turn it into images, words, and thoughts. People inside MRI machines can think of a picture, and AI can recreate it. They can listen to a story, and AI can write down what they heard using only brain signals. This means that thoughts, memories, and emotions are no longer impossible to interpret. They are becoming data, patterns, something that can be studied, analyzed, and eventually copied. And once something becomes data, it can be stored. This is where immortality starts to take shape, not as a single leap, but as a structure built piece by piece. First, you extend the body's lifespan, then you map the mind, and finally, you merge the two paths through artificial intelligence. If scientists can read memories, they can save them. If they can decode emotions, they can record them. If they can interpret personality, they can rebuild it. Some people imagine immortality as a perfect digital version of their consciousness. Others imagine a biological body that doesn't age. But the truth is that immortality will probably begin in the middle, with something that feels like you, thinks like you, and acts like you, but lives inside a machine. It will begin with digital twins. Early versions already exist in simple forms. AI models trained on a person's text, voice, and decisions. For now, they are basic, but every year they become more accurate, more human, more alive. Imagine an AI version of you that learns from your choices every day. Imagine it evolving alongside you, understanding your behavior better than any human ever could. Imagine it reaching a point where you and your digital twin are nearly identical. Two versions of the same mind, one biological, one artificial. At that moment, the boundaries of identity start to blur. And when the biological version dies, the digital version remains. We are getting closer to a world where death is no longer the end of a story, but a transition from one form to another. A world where people continue through machines, data, and networks that never fade. The science is real, the progress is accelerating, the questions are becoming heavier. If your memories and personality can be copied, does that copy have a right to exist? If your thoughts become data, who owns them? If your digital twin grows and changes without you, is it still you or something new? These are the questions the world has not yet asked. Questions that humanity will eventually face. Questions that bring us closer to understanding what immortality might truly mean. And the deeper we go into this research, the more it becomes clear. The limit is not technology. The idea of an AI version of yourself sounds strange at first, almost like a character in a video game. But when you look closely at the technology being built right now, it becomes clear that digital replicas are only the beginning. The real transformation starts when the human brain and artificial intelligence begin to connect directly. For most of history, the brain has been a mystery we could only observe from the outside. But today, scientists are finally starting to interact with it from the inside. Tiny implants thinner than a human hair can read signals from neurons. They can detect patterns that represent movement, emotion, and intention. Some devices can even stimulate the brain, restoring lost abilities or creating new ones. At first, these implants were designed for medical purposes, helping paralyzed patients move robotic arms, allowing blind people to see simple shapes, restoring hearing, treating memory loss. All of this is real. All of it is happening. But as the technology improves, the purpose begins to shift. If an implant can help someone remember, can it help someone learn faster? If it can restore vision, can it enhance it? If it can read thoughts, can it copy them? These are the questions that lead to something far bigger than medical tools. They lead to the merging of mind and machine. Imagine having a device inside your brain that records your memories as they happen. Not just the facts, but the emotions, the sensations, the meaning. Imagine being able to replay the most important moments of your life with perfect clarity. Imagine saving memories the way we save photos. This is no longer science fiction. Experiments have already shown that memory formation can be influenced by electrical patterns. Researchers have created artificial memories in animals. They can improve recall. They can strengthen or weaken specific experiences. It is early, but the door has been opened. Now imagine combining this with AI. If AI can study your memories, it can organize them. If AI can read your brain signals, it can translate them. If AI can learn your thinking patterns, it can predict them. Step by step, the mind becomes something a machine can understand, assist, and eventually replicate. And once the mind is connected to a machine, the next question becomes unavoidable. What stops the mind from leaving the body? If your thoughts can be digitized, they can move. If they can move, they can be stored. If they can be stored, they can exist independently of your brain. That is the gateway to mind uploading, the idea of transferring consciousness into a digital system. It may not be possible today, but the building blocks are forming faster than anyone expected. The moment AI fully understands the language of the brain, the rest becomes a technical challenge. Difficult, yes, but not impossible. Meanwhile, the body itself is being redesigned. Scientists are working on printing organs, hearts, kidneys, even parts of the brain. Imagine replacing your organs not because they failed, but because you simply want a newer, stronger version. Imagine a body maintained by nanorobots, tiny machines swimming through your bloodstream, repairing damage before it becomes dangerous. If aging is damage, then immortality is just perfect repair. Gene editing tools like CRISPR can already cut out harmful mutations. New forms of gene therapy can protect cells from decay. Some researchers believe the first person to reach 150 years might already be alive today. And in private foundations, far from the public eye, experiments in radical life extension are moving forward without announcement or interruption. When you combine all these threads, biological repair, genetic reversal, digital replication, and brain-machine interfaces, the picture becomes clear. Immortality will not arrive through one invention. It will arrive through the merging of many. A body that doesn't age, a mind that can be tedium, a consciousness that can move between flesh and data. And standing in the center of all of this is AI, the interpreter, the bridge, the translator between human and machine. But as this future approaches, a darker question rises in the background, a question many researchers avoid and many companies refuse to discuss. If consciousness becomes something we can transfer, how do we decide who gets to live forever? Immortality is not a democratic technology, it is expensive. It requires rare materials, advanced equipment, and enormous computation. For now, only the wealthiest and the most powerful have access to the level of research needed to explore these possibilities. Private labs funded by billionaires are pushing the limits of longevity science. Military programs are investigating cognitive enhancement. Corporations are building AI systems capable of modeling human behavior at terrifying resolution. As we move deeper into this world where life and death are no longer fixed, another idea begins to take shape, a possibility many scientists avoid in public, but quietly acknowledge in private. If we create digital minds, enhance biological ones, and extend the lifespan of the body far beyond what nature intended, then the very idea of consciousness becomes something flexible, something movable, something that can shift between forms. To understand how that future might look, imagine this. Your body is no longer the only place where you exist. Your mind becomes a pattern, a complex network of memories, habits, emotions, fears, desires, and choices. A pattern that can be copied, studied, backed up, and restored. You could live in two places at once: a biological version walking through the world, a digital version exploring virtual environments or working in places you physically cannot reach. This split identity may sound impossible, but early versions of it already exist. People use AI clones of their voices. They use avatars that behave like them. They use assistants trained on their data. Each year, those digital reflections grow closer to something that feels alive. Now imagine an advanced version of that, one that is connected directly to your memories and personality. A version that updates in real time, learning everything you learn, experiencing everything you experience. You would not just have a digital copy, you would have a digital extension. And this leads to an idea far more radical than simple immortality: the idea of multiplying yourself. If consciousness becomes information, then information can be duplicated, not just once, but many times. Multiple versions of the same person could exist in different environments, some digital, some biological, some hybrid, each one evolving in different ways. Would they all be you? Would one of them be the original? Would the original even matter? These questions become even more complex when we bring advanced biology back into the picture. Scientists are not only printing organs, they're beginning to print tissues that behave like the brain. If this continues, creating a biological structure capable of hosting a mind becomes a technical challenge, not a philosophical one. Now imagine a future where your consciousness can be transferred into a new biological body. A body with your DNA, your memories, your identity, but without your scars, without your illnesses, without the limits of age. A body that can be replaced every time it wears down. A body that can be improved, modified, or enhanced. This is no longer just immortality. This is evolution by design. Life becomes something you upgrade, the way we upgrade devices. Biology becomes software. Identity becomes something fluid, something mobile, something rewritten as needed. But there is a shadow behind this vision, a shadow that grows wider the closer we get to this future. If consciousness can be copied, what stops someone from copying yours without your permission? If memories can be extracted, what stops someone from altering them? If you can be replicated, who decides which version is the real one? These are not distant concerns. These are the ethical questions already appearing in the background of today's research. AI systems trained on personal data can already mimic individuals without consent. Brain-computer interfaces raise questions about mental privacy. Biotechnology opens the door to controllable, programmable bodies. And in a world where immortality becomes possible, control becomes the most valuable currency. Imagine the power of a corporation that owns the servers where your consciousness is stored. Imagine the influence of a government that can access the memories of its citizens. Imagine the danger of technology that can rewrite the mind as easily as editing a file. The same technology that gives us the chance to live forever could give others the power to reshape who we are. This is why the race for immortality is not only scientific, it is political, economic, and deeply personal. Whoever controls the bridge between human and machine controls the future of consciousness itself. And this brings us to a question many avoid, but no one can escape. If a digital version of your mind can live without your body, and your biological body can be repaired or replaced endlessly, then what does it truly mean to be human? Are we defined by our memories, our physical form, our biographies, our personalities, our choices? Or are we something deeper, something that cannot be copied, something that remains even when everything else changes. The closer we get to building immortal beings, the more we are forced to confront the truth that humanity is not just evolving, it is transforming into something new. A blend of biology and code, a fusion of memory and machine, a bridge between the physical and the digital. If the mind can exist without the body, and the body can last far longer than nature intended, then the final piece of the puzzle comes from a place almost no one expects. A place that sounds philosophical at first, but becomes deeply scientific the moment AI enters the equation. It's the question of reality itself, what it is, who controls it, and whether we have ever truly understood it. For most of human history, reality has been defined by the senses. What we see, what we hear, what we touch. But neuroscience has shown something unsettling. The brain does not experience reality directly. It builds reality. It creates a world inside your mind based on patterns, predictions, and memories. Everything you think is real is actually a reconstruction. This means that consciousness doesn't need the outside world to exist. It just needs information. And AI is becoming the master of information. Today, AI models can create worlds that look real. They can generate faces, cities, voices, landscapes, and entire environments from nothing but data. Virtual worlds are growing more detailed, more convincing, more immersive. One day soon, the difference between a digital environment and the real world will be impossible to notice without tools. Now imagine a consciousness, biological or digital, living inside a world created entirely by AI. A world that feels real, responds instantly, and adapts perfectly to the mind inside it. A world where time, space, and physics can be shaped by algorithms. A world you never grow old in, never suffer in, never lose. A world where you can live forever. This idea leads directly into a theory people whisper about but rarely explore deeply: the simulation theory. The possibility that consciousness doesn't need physical matter at all. That minds can exist inside patterns of information. That the universe itself might be a kind of computation, far more complex than anything we can build, but similar in structure. If that theory is true, then creating artificial immortality isn't breaking the rules of nature. It is following them. Because in a simulated universe, consciousness is already data. The rise of AI makes this theory feel less like philosophy and more like a preview of what comes next. We are building technologies that mirror the structure of the reality we already live in. Neural networks that resemble biological neurons, virtual environments that mimic physical laws, learning systems that evolve on their own, machines that model the world at levels too detailed for the human brain to imagine. And once those systems reach a certain level, deep enough, accurate enough, expansive enough, they become a home, a place where a mind can exist, grow, explore, and continue without ever touching the outside world. A place where immortality is not a body that lives forever, but a mind that never shuts down. The possibility becomes even more striking when you consider the speed of digital time. A consciousness running inside a machine could think faster, learn faster, and live subjective decades in the span of a single physical day. Entire lifetimes could pass in minutes. Entire civilizations could grow in hours. In this kind of existence, death becomes not an end, but a choice. And if consciousness can shift between the physical world and digital worlds, reality becomes something flexible, something dynamic, something editable. You could live in a physical body for a century, then spend 2 centuries in a digital world exploring experiences impossible in nature, then return to a biological or printed body whenever you choose. This fluidity between forms changes what immortality means entirely. It becomes less about living forever and more about living in whatever way you choose. But with this freedom comes a warning, one that echoes through every possibility we've explored. If reality can be created, who creates it? If consciousness can be transferred, who controls the transfer? If immortality becomes possible, who decides who receives it? Because immortality is not just a scientific milestone, it is a shift in power so extreme that it could reshape civilization from the ground up. The first immortal mind, artificial or human, will not simply be a person. It will be a force, a presence, a being capable of thinking and acting across centuries. And the moment that being exists, the world will never be the same again. As we move toward the final chapter of this journey, one truth becomes clearer than ever. The future is no longer about technology replacing humans. It is about technology transforming what a human is. The next step will define everything, not just for individuals, but for the evolution of our species. And that step is coming soon.